Good day, everyone, especially to my human rights education students from Tarlac State University. Today, we will be discussing an overview, or we will be giving an overview of human rights, and I am your instructor, Ricardo Mariano. As to the contents of the topics for today, we will define what is human rights and what are its characteristics. What is human rights? Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Okay? So this means that human rights is in everybody. Okay? It is inherent. You need not do anything in order for you to have human rights. It's basically automatic. Okay? You have human rights, whether whatever your race. Okay, when we say race, you can be a Caucasian, an Asian, an Australoid. Okay, and by the way, when we say Asian, okay, it is also called Mongoloid. Okay, the Asian is also called as Mongoloid. So do not go about teasing your classmates or any person you know as Mongoloids, kasi lahat tayo being Asians, we are Mongoloids. Okay. And then we have sex also, whether you're male or female, you have human rights. Whether you're Filipino, you're American, you have rights. Whether you're Kapampangan, Ilocano, you have rights. Whether you are a Christian, a Muslim, you have rights. Even if you are coming from a low-class family or low-class, how would you call that? A poor family, say for example. Okay, or a rich family, it's the same. You still have the same rights. So another definition is that human rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Okay, so this definition gives us what is included in human rights, no? Such as the right to life and liberty. When we say right to life, of course, the right to our being, to our living, okay, the right to live, okay, na mabuhay. And then liberty is our freedom to say, for example, go wherever we want. Okay, we are not limited na, unlike, for example, yung mga prisoners, so they do not have the liberty, di ba? So we are free from slavery, or hindi tayo pwedeng maging utusan ng kahit na sino. Okay, we cannot be tortured. We have our opinion and we can voice them out or express them. We can choose what will be our work in the future. Okay, and yun, education is also a right for us. Before, education was a right from elementary to high school. Pero ngayon, considering na there is also the free tuition for college, so we can now see that there is really a right to education from elementary up to college. Okay? And then another one, or another definition is everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. So more like a description, not a definition. Ano? So these definitions or descriptions that we have mentioned earlier all came from the United Nations document published in 1945. So everyone is entitled to the rights that we have mentioned without discrimination. So whatever you are, whoever you are, these rights apply to you equally. Okay? So now, let's go to the characteristics of human rights. So what are they? Human rights are universal and inalienable. Okay? What does this mean? We'll tackle them later on one by one. Okay? Human rights are interdependent, interrelated, and indivisible. They are equal and non-discriminatory, and both human rights are both a right and an obligation. Okay? Okay, or both rights and obligations. So what do we mean when we say human rights are universal and inalienable? Okay? So to give an example, the 1993 Vienna World Conference on Human Rights noted that it is the duty of states to promote and protect all human rights and fundamental freedoms, regardless of their political, economic, and cultural system. So with this, we can say that when we say universal, it means that it applies to everyone. Okay, universal. Whatever your as stated herein, you have the rights, whatever your political system is or your political views. Okay, whether you are, say, for example, from a democracy, from a monarchy, you have your own freedoms or rights. Okay, so economic speaks about your financial status. So whether you are rich or poor, okay, even when it comes to culture, okay, whatever culture, whether you are from Philippines, from Pampanga, from Tarlac, from Ilocos, yeah. Although you have different cultures, all of you have the same rights. Then another example, all states have ratified at least one, and 80% of states have ratified four or more of the core human rights treaties, okay, reflecting consent of states, which creates legal obligations for them and giving concrete expression to universality. Okay, so that means that all states, meaning countries, amounting to 190 plus countries, all of them have at least one, okay, human right, okay, that they are implementing in their country. And 80% of that 190 plus, so how many is that? About 150 to 160 out of the 190 countries have at least four of the human rights, main human rights treaties, okay, implemented in their country. By the way, what do we mean when we say treaties? Treaties are agreements between different countries, okay, whether by twos, okay, or as a group, okay. And in this case, these treaties are the agreements when it comes to the implementation or the legal obligation to implement human rights. Okay. Next, human rights or some fundamental human rights norms enjoy universal protection by customary international law across all boundaries and civilizations. Okay, so again, human rights is enjoyed everywhere. This is supported even by customary laws. What do we mean when we say customary laws? Customary laws are those unwritten laws, but because of their continued and long time observance, it becomes or it attains the power of a law. Okay, customs, parang yun nga, dahil nakasanayan na in the international community, for example, parang obligado na tayo na sundan yung nakasanayan na yun, yung custom na yun na makes it a law already, even if it is unwritten. Then they should not be taken away except in specific situations such as when someone breaks the law, and only then according to due process. So there we have it. That is the meaning of inalienable. It cannot be taken away. Although there is an exemption to that rule, and the exemption is if you break the law, yeah, the inalienability of the human rights may be taken away from you, meaning the human rights can be withdrawn back. Okay, so how does that happen? So for example, if you break the law, your freedom to go everywhere is now limited because you will be imprisoned. So that is one good example. So we now go next to the next characteristic of the human rights, and that is human rights are interdependent, interrelated, and indivisible. Okay? Human rights are intricately related to each other, and none has priority over the over another. So very true that the human rights are related. Okay, for example, if we have rights to rights of freedom of expression, okay, and then we also have the freedom of redress or to redress or give grievances to the government. So they are related because both of them is shows our freedom to talk back, okay, or freedom to talk in expression, or freedom to talk to our government officials when it comes to our concerns. Okay, so they are related, and ideally, it says here that there is no priority over another. No, ideally, But to be honest, in the real world, of course, there will be times na a certain human right will be prevailed over the other. How did that happen? For example, if we were to have the right to life, liberty, and property, okay, so which right will be the priority? Will you say that property and life is the same? Of course not. Okay, we will prioritize life over property. So although ideally, yes, they are the same, no right has the priority. That is the ideal form of human rights. Pero in the real setting or in the real Makoy, ayun, there will be times that a certain human right will prevail over the other. Okay? And then it is not acceptable to respect some human rights and not others. So yun, you cannot choose which human rights to observe. Ano? Hindi pwedeng gagawin mo lang yung isang, you will comply with one human right of another person and then you will not comply with his or her other rights. Hindi pwede yung mamimili ka lang. Dapat i-comply mo lahat or you observe the rights of that persons. Okay? Or person. The enjoyment of one right is often dependent on the enjoyment of other rights. Very true. That because they are yun nga, interdependent and interrelated. So if you enjoy one, there is probability that you will enjoy the other. Such as again, going to the example, yun nga, if you enjoy your freedom of expression, okay, at the same time, you would have to enjoy also your freedom to express your concerns to the government. Okay? What else? So, the violation of one right will often adversely affect other rights. So, in the same vein earlier na if you enjoy one right, you will enjoy another, ganun din, if you violate one right, there is a probability that you will violate the other. Okay? Parang ganun din. For example, eto, I'm not saying na this is, sabihin na lang natin hypothetically. There is curtailment of freedom of the press, di ba? Parang yun, again, ano lang to, hypothetical. I'm not in support of ABS-CBN or the Duterte administration, wala tayong pinapanigan. Example na lang, sabihin natin. Let's assume or presume na na-curtail yung freedom of the press. So dahil na-curtail yung freedom of the press, ano yung naging epekto niya? Okay? In effect, parang naapektuhan yung freedom natin to give our concerns against the government for redress and grievances. And pati yung freedom of expression medyo na-curtail din because of the hypothetical violation of press freedom or curtailment of the press freedom. Okay? So that is an example. Then also improving accessibility to one right will often advance the accessibility of other rights. Again, balik tayo dun sa positive note. Pag inobserve natin or na-access natin yung isang right, there is a probability na ma-access din natin yung ibang rights because yun nga, they are interdependent and interrelated. So take for example, the right to due process. So pag na-observe yung right mo to due process na you will be heard, you will be tried, okay, so at the same time, na-access mo na rin yung right to the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. So they are really interrelated. Okay? So human rights are also equal and non-discriminatory. Excuse me. The principle of non-discrimination applies to everyone in relation to all human rights and freedoms regardless of any human characteristic or characteristics or on the basis of a list of non-exhaustive categories, excuse me, such as sex, race, color, and so on. So again, the human rights does not discriminate. So whether you are male, female, okay, although yun, pwede tayong mag-comment dito na sometimes because of the prevalence of the women's right movement or yung feminism, minsan ako observance lang, medyo mas maraming rights na ngayon na naibibigay sa females as compared sa males. Although, again, going to other laws, meron kasi tayong tinatawag na patriarchal system dito sa Pilipinas na kung saan yung image sa 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 ating country, sa ating family, sa household, parang ang leader talaga ng family is the father eh. So yun, medyo kailangan pa nating ayusin on that note. Pero yun nga, unti-unti, dumadami na rin naman yung rights ng female. So, nababalance na kahit papaano. Okay? So, whatever you race, nasabi na natin. So, ingat sa pagtawag ng mongoloid sa mga kaibigan ninyo. And then color, whether you are white, whether you are a black person, or somewhere in between, kayo manggi, yan, parang Pilipino. So, walang ano yan, walang pinipili ang human rights. Although again, kung current events ang pag-uusapan in the foreign setting in the United States, di ba? Parang yung mga black people or persons, talagang medyo nadi-discriminate pa sila ng konti. Kaya nga nagkaroon tayo ng Black Lives Movement or Black Lives Matter movement sa Amerika because of that certain person who was supposedly killed while being arrested, no? Because of suffocation. So, ayun. There is discrimination there. Sa atin naman sa Pilipinas, sabi nga nila, yung discrimination naman natin sa ating race or sa ating ethnicity, meron ba? Sabi nung iba, wala. Sabi nung iba, meron. So, take na lang for example naman sa mga Bisaya na sinasabi natin. There are times na kapag nakakarinig tayo ng tao na parang yung pananalita niya ay Bisaya, aminin natin sa hindi, medyo natatawa tayo. So that is somewhat a little form of discrimination. Okay? Kasi tinatawanan natin, or yun nga, parang iba yung tingin natin sa kanila because of the way they speak, which should not be the case. Okay? Then what else? The principle of non-discrimination is complemented by the principle of equality, as stated in Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So again, may panganak ka mang mahirap, mayaman, you have equal dignity and rights. Although some of you might say na, sir, hindi naman ata totoo yan. Again, ideally, this is what the law provides na dapat pare-parehas. Pero sometimes then, it depends kasi on the person. Kasi pag ikaw, for example, pinanganak kang mahirap, tapos paninindigan mo yon, yung kumbaga, you will remove your dignity from yourself, that's already your fault. Bakit mo tatanggalin yung dignity sa sarili mo just because you are poor? Kung pwede namang, even if you are poor, meron ka pa ring dignity. Parang ganyan, okay? So sometimes it also depends on the persons. Although the law provides na equal, sometimes the decision of the persons or the people affects the equality of these human rights. Okay? And human rights can be both a right or a duty and an obligation. Okay? Human right is a right or as a right because it belongs to everyone. Okay? These human rights that we are discussing, we will be discussing, it is for all of us. Okay? Hindi lang to para sa isang estudyante, para sa dalawa. Ito lahat ay para sa atin. It should be observed for all of us. Okay? And it is also an obligation, for it is the responsibility of everyone. So, ganyan dapat palagi. Right and obligation must always come together. Hindi dapat yung palaging sinasabi nyo lang na, meron kaming human rights, dapat ganito, dapat ganyan. Hindi. Dapat meron kaming human rights, pero meron din kaming obligation na i-observe yung human rights ng ibang tao. Okay? For example na lang siguro, in freedom of expression, di ba? Yes, you have the freedom of expression. Pwede kang magsalita kung anong gusto mong sabihin. But be sure na yun nga, hindi naman natin sasaktan yung ibang tao sa sasabihin natin. Okay? Because yun nga, parang mali naman. So you have the right, yes, but you also have an obligation. It comes together. Hindi pwedeng right ka lang, hindi pwedeng obligation ka lang. Okay? It must come together. You must have a right. Yes, you have the right, but you must have an obligation also. Okay? So, states assume particular obligations and duties under international law to respect, to protect, and to promote human rights. So, these are the three obligations. Number one, obligation to respect. States must refrain from interfering with or curtailing the enjoyment of human rights. So again, this is the general rule. Our countries cannot interfere or curtail. They cannot limit the enjoyment of human rights. But again, sabi nga natin, in every rule, there shall be an exemption. So again, if you are, for example, yun nga, you were convicted of a crime, no choice, talagang makakartil yung enjoyment mo. Kasi pag nag-commit ka ng crime, say for example, you killed a person, okay? And hindi i-curtail yung human rights mo, i-maintain nila yung right of liberty mo, hahayaan ka pa rin nila sa community. Anong mangyayari? Okay, you can kill another person, okay, and we will result in chaos, okay, which should not be. Kaya nga meron tayong gobyerno. Then obligation to protect requires states to protect individuals and groups against human rights abuses. Kaya meron tayong Commission on Human Rights, which we will discuss in the future. So hindi lang yan yun nga, ang problema lang kasi, ang sabi ng iba, the Human Rights Commission ay nandyan lamang kapag ang na-violate na human rights ay rights ng mga offenders. Pero pag rights ng mga ordinary citizens, parang wala masyado ang Commission on Human Rights, no? Okay? Or kapag rights ng victims. So siguro yun yung kanilang ano. Pero sometimes, not to defend them, kailangan lang natin to look at both sides. Bakit kaya tsaka lang natin sila naririnig pag ano bang tawag dito? Kapag mga offenders yung na-violate yung rights. Hindi kaya may kinalaman dun ang media. Kasi aminin natin sa hindi, naririnig lang naman natin ang human rights through media. So kung si media, tsaka nga lang naman niya pupuntahan si human rights pag offenders yung involved, tapos pag victim yung involved, hindi nila i-interviewin si human rights, then I think that can be one of the reasons kaya hindi nakakapagsalita si human rights kapag biktima yung na-violate. Kasi there is a probability na hindi naman sila napupuntahan ng media. So there can be reasons, no? Okay, we can only speculate, pero yun nga, let's try to be open-minded. Okay, hindi yung may nakita lang tayo, one post, two posts, na-judge na natin yung whole personality ng isang organization. Maaring meron ding dahilan. Try din nating tingnan. Try din nating intindihin. Okay? And then, obligation to fulfill. States must take positive action to facilitate the enjoyment of basic human rights. So, yun nga. Kailangan ma-ensure ng gobyerno natin na tayo ay, our country, na yung mga human rights natin ay talagang ma-enjoy natin o talagang ma-observe, okay, sa ating bansa. So again, the Commission on Human Rights was created by the Constitution. Yung ating Constitution itself provides for many human rights. In Article 3 or the Bill of Rights, mga nasa 22, if we are not mistaken. So as a final note or closing message, at the individual level, while we are entitled to our human rights, we should also respect the human rights of others. I think that's a very good ending note, considering na yun nga, yes, we have the rights, but we also have to respect the rights of others. Hindi lang palagi yung rights mo yung pinapairal mo, tingnan mo rin naman yung rights ng iba. Baka na-violate mo na yung rights nila in the observance of your own human rights. Okay? So with that, we are ending this discussion. If you have questions, you may message me through my official Facebook. Okay, the one with the wearing Americana, if we are friends in Facebook. Or if you want, if this will be uploaded in the Microsoft Teams, you can comment there your question. Or if this would be uploaded in the YouTube channel of The Secrets, Criminology Made Easy, you can also comment your suggestions there. So with that being said, thank you very much. And for my class, again, we will have a quiz or recitation next meeting, okay? This Friday. So with that being said, thank you very much. Keep safe and see you soon. Kasi hindi pala na-record.